My ex-partner, 27M, went back on his ultimatum and wants me F25 back. Is it manipulation, or can a breakup help you see clearly? Hello. I am posting here because I am genuinely confused about what to do. This may be a rather lengthy post, but I believe a certain amount of context is necessary to explain how the ultimatum arose. My relationship deteriorated last week when I told my now ex-boyfriend that I had sexual relations with two of my close male friends about 4 years ago, who I have known for almost 10 years. These friends live in a different city from me, so we do not see each other very often, usually just a couple of times each year. On the other hand, we are more physically affectionate than most people I know, and we have maintained that closeness for almost the entire time we have known each other, always in a platonic manner, with the exception of that one time. By this, I mean kisses on the cheeks, hugging, picking each other up, or holding hands when we sleep. The practice of sleeping in the same bed also stems from living in small towns with a poor transportation system, resulting in frequent spontaneous sleepovers during our teenage years. I recognize that this behavior is not considered normal by many people, but everyone has always understood that we are merely friends. I have never believed that a potential partner should simply accept these aspects, but since I do not see these friends often and I had a long break from dating, I had not fully considered how and when to address these issues. 1 month into dating my ex-boyfriend, prior to us becoming exclusive, one of these friends ended up staying over at my home after my birthday party. It was spontaneous. We slept in the same bed and held hands, and only the following day did I start to think about how the person I was dating might feel about that. When I spoke to him next, I informed him that it had happened, that it was just part of how we interact, but that I wanted to gauge his feelings on the matter. This led to a considerable conflict, and many of his friends who weighed in on the situation suggested that I likely had sexual relations with my friend that night. Well, we managed to resolve the issue, and I chose not to disclose at that time that I had previously had sex with this friend, as it began to seem like I might be testing his boundaries or something similar. We continued to date. About a month later, while he was scrolling through his phone, a picture of two acquaintances appeared, prompting me to exclaim their names in surprise. He inquired how I knew them, and I briefly explained that I was familiar with one because we had gone on 3 dates together. They share the same major, so I apparently also stated, "He's the other guy I have dated who studies." My partner has since mentioned that his reaction stemmed from this comment, as he does not like being compared to other men. What he actually expressed that night, however, was that I should have just kept quiet and never mentioned anything, and it was even worse that I disclosed the fact that we had gone on 3 dates, since now he was aware that we had sex 3 times, asking me if we had engaged in sexual relations at my house or his, and criticizing me for having slept with this man while degrading his appearance. On another occasion, he articulated that it physically pains him to contemplate that I have been with other individuals, and he believes I am a bit strange regarding these matters since it does not bother me as much. Following this, I thought it best not to inform my partner about whom I had slept with in the past. However, in recent weeks, he began asking me about my friends and whether I had been intimate with them, stating he thought it was important to know since they are people I still socialize with. I then realized I needed to tell him about my friends from 4 years ago, understanding it would create conflict, but I never anticipated it would escalate to this extent. When I disclosed this information to him, he initially responded that it was acceptable and that it was normal for someone to have slept with a few friends, but he considered it a deal-breaker that we could no longer share a bed, to which I agreed. I was quite anxious about revealing this, which he admitted almost bothered him more than the information itself, along with the fact that I had not told him earlier. The following day, Wednesday night, he conveyed that he was starting to suspect something had occurred between my friend and me after my birthday, and he required some space. He suggested we could still hang out as planned on Friday night to discuss it. However, on Thursday evening, he sent me a lengthy message demanding that I explain minor occurrences dating back to the beginning of our relationship, including what my friend and I wore during his sleepover, and whether I had ever engaged in any activity with anyone throughout the entire time we were getting to know each other. He specifically requested to know if I had ever even held hands with anyone or planned a date with someone, even if it did not come to fruition, stating that he wanted information because he had noticed that, on 3 separate occasions, I had suddenly stopped responding to him while I was out during our initial acquaintance. He requested that I write everything down in advance so that we could then meet up on Friday and review the list together. He stated he needed to determine after that if he could trust me. He also insisted that this process was necessary, or else the relationship would be over, and he imposed additional ultimatums regarding these friends, stating that we could no longer give each other kisses or sleep in the same apartment again. I replied the next day that I did not want to proceed with this arrangement, as I did not believe anything would genuinely alleviate his mistrust, and I did not want to be treated in this manner since I had only failed to inform him of my past. Initially, he apologized and seemed regretful and angry with himself. Later, while under the influence of alcohol, he attempted to call me and then messaged me to say that we were a bad match anyway, and that all his friends believed his demands of me were reasonable. We met up the other day, and he appeared very upset, ultimately asking me for another chance. He stated he believes he mistreated me with that message, but he also pointed out earlier in the conversation that a friend thought the message was appropriate. I also mentioned that I do not really want to hear his friend's opinions on these matters, as I respect his views without needing our disputes to be subjected to a poll. If we see things differently, I am not simply going to concede because his friends support his perspective. We must reach a mutual understanding without coercion. He also indicated that it was a deal-breaker for him, acknowledging that he issued the ultimatum knowing I might indeed choose to end the relationship. He claims he is asking for another opportunity, as he does not wish to behave in that manner toward me either, and if he cannot honor that, the relationship genuinely should come to an end. However, he wants to attempt once more because he feels he mishandled this situation. He admitted he has some commitment and trust issues, which make it feel easier to give up when he feels threatened. As he already perceives, he is taking a risk by trusting someone. He expressed that this opened his eyes to the fact that he genuinely does not want our relationship to terminate. He also claims to understand my reasoning for not disclosing the information sooner, even if he remains sad and angry that I did not do so, which I completely comprehend. Furthermore, the issue regarding not sleeping in the same dwelling anymore was primarily about his uncertainty that we might end up sharing a bed anyway if my friends were not vigilant about ensuring I had a separate sleeping area. I informed him that I would need time to consider his proposal, also for his own benefit. He asserts that his mistrust has vanished entirely and that he now realizes I have not engaged in anything disloyal or intentionally harmful. Can mistrust really disappear so suddenly? Honestly, I would not mind if he retains a bit of mistrust toward me, as I believe it is reasonable given my failure to disclose my history with my friends. In summary, I am feeling uncertain if he is being somewhat manipulative by offering me an ultimatum, which he then withdraws when I choose to opt out. I know ultimately I could find out with time, but I am seeking some peace of mind going into this, as I believe our relationship's reboot would likely be more successful if I felt I could trust that he is entering this with a clear perspective. So, what do you think can trust issues genuinely vanish so easily? Could this be a genuine epiphany following the near loss of a relationship, or did he never perceive the possibility of losing it and is now trying to mitigate damage? Thank you all in advance, and please let me know if more context is necessary. Summary: I informed my ex-boyfriend of 5 months that I had sexual relations with a friend 4 years ago. This revelation opened some trust issues for him, and he issued me an ultimatum regarding how we would discuss the matter and how I was permitted to interact with my friends moving forward. I did not agree to the ultimatum, and now he has rescinded it and regrets having imposed it, claiming he no longer feels mistrust. Is it possible to retract an ultimatum and lose mistrust that quickly? Story 2. My 25F fiancé, 33M, wants me to forget how his family treated me. Am I a jerk for not wanting to forgive them? I have never written one of these before, and I am currently recovering from major surgery, so I apologize if my thoughts seem disorganized and scattered. For context, we have been together for 3 years now, and I have consistently been belittled by all of them. This mistreatment appears to stem from the fact that I am neither Latina nor Catholic. When I first met him, He was still living at home, and his mother controlled most of his life choices then and continues to do so now. She still manages his finances, which is surprising to me because my parents have not touched my bank accounts since I turned 18. He was pampered throughout much of his life, while I learned everything independently and had to mature much faster than I ideally should have. I initially put in a lot of effort. I attended all family functions, including birthdays, graduations, and parties. I routinely brought his mother flowers and plants and frequently cooked dinner for them. Once, I even baked her a cake at 10 o'clock at night on a workday because she asked me to at the last minute. I purchased gifts and encouraged him to attend family events, regardless of how last minute they were. I thought this was acceptable behavior, but after 3 years, I am realizing it was not enough, and nothing I have done has sufficed. At the beginning, his father would make jokes suggesting that he would leave me for a woman who spoke Spanish. I found this somewhat insensitive, yet he makes jokes at everyone else's expense as well, so I initially brushed it off. However, it has become increasingly problematic over the years. I practice Wicca, and on several occasions, his family has made very childish comments to my face, such as, "Oh, we are so glad the wicked witch hasn't killed you yet." My fiancé has not always been faithful to me, and they have ridiculed and blamed me for it. His mother holds me responsible for everything he does wrong everything. With all due respect, I am not his parent, and it is not my obligation to ensure that a 33-year-old man knows how to manage his life. He refuses to call her on a daily basis, which is what she desires. I spent a month reminding him of her birthday last year, and he still forgot it. He rarely attends their events, and often informs me about them at the very last minute, usually when I already have prior commitments. He also shares all of our issues with his mother, every single one which I find inappropriate, because she frequently throws them in my face, especially our intimate problems, as I have a chronic pelvic condition that I believe she should not be privy to. I do not discuss such matters with either of my parents. On one occasion, she asked me to assist her with something on her phone, and while doing so, I saw her searching for our zodiac sexual compatibility. His mother is a medical professional and consistently undermines my chronic illness, even going so far as to accuse me of lying about it. She used to tell me it couldn't be that serious because she had friends with similar issues, insisting that my healthcare team was clearly dishonest. She even accessed my medical records at one of the hospital systems where she works, which I believe might be illegal, and informed her son that I had undergone an ultrasound. This makes me extremely uneasy, especially since I already bear the burden of a chronic health condition, and discussions regarding my health should be between me and my doctor. I have even tried to transfer most of my medical care to a different healthcare system to prevent future occurrences, but unfortunately, a doctor I need to see regularly still works within her network. She attempted to convince him that I did not actually need the surgery and that my doctor was mistaken, despite her being an award-winning surgeon. On multiple occasions, I have gone out to eat with his family, and his mother has criticized my food choices, even while cooking. At one point, I was on a strict diet due to my health condition and had very limited food options. I prepared pasta with chicken and a broccoli sauce made from olive oil and herbs, only for her to go on a tirade about how I was poisoning my body with carbohydrates, a sentiment she has expressed repeatedly as my health has declined. This past year, I found myself limited in my ability to exercise, which she constantly threw in my face not by my medical team, who were fully aware of my situation, but by her. She also consistently comments on my tattoos, claiming they are tacky and disgusting, and insists that I do not have a real job because I do not work in the medical field. I actually have a respectable job in the science field and earn more than her son. His sister has accused me on several occasions of taking him away from his family and causing their mother's depression due to his decision to move out with me. He is 33. Most people have moved out by that age. I have never prevented him from seeing them or made remarks about his interactions with them. I was only upset once because he had promised my grandmother he would attend her Christmas dinner but canceled for their last-minute event, despite having seen them for brunch that day and the night before. On Christmas Eve, I went to his family's house for a party. I brought dessert and planned to return to their house the following day, despite not seeing my family, just to appease them, since seemingly nothing I do is right. After a few drinks, his sister began shouting about how he was abandoning his family for me and that I was essentially the problem, suggesting he should attend events without me, as other couples do. He did not defend me and allowed her to continue yelling at me and hurling slurs. I called a friend who lived nearby since I did not have my car and left. I refused to remain in a place where I was not wanted. I discussed the situation with my therapist, who stated that although it was not the ideal decision, it was justified, as what else was I supposed to do, sit there and endure abuse? I do not speak back, and I am not confrontational. I grew up in a chaotic household and survived domestic violence, so while I am not proud of it, I often live in a state of fight or flight and completely admit that this is wrong. However, I do attend therapy to actively work on myself. Since that night, I have not attended any of their events and have only reached out to send birthday wishes and get well messages. I have avoided contact because I feel extraordinarily unwelcome and do not know what else to do. My therapist has suggested that I communicate when I feel comfortable, but I have not done so. No one has apologized or reached out. My fiancé attends their weekly dinners and returns home in a bad mood every time, often instigating arguments, with the most recent occurring the day before my procedure when I was under enough stress as it was. He is angry with me for avoiding family events and weekly dinners and for going low contact. He has gone to the extent of suggesting he might call off the engagement because I have ruined my relationship with his family. His mother has even told him to cancel the wedding venue and return the ring. I feel that while I have made mistakes, I am not the only one who bears responsibility in this situation. I am in need of guidance because, at this point, I do not know what to do, whether this relationship can be salvaged, or if it is worth repairing. He constantly reminds me that this is my fault, that everything is my fault, and that I have caused this situation. Once again, I apologize if this is jumbled and inconsistent, but I cannot even recover from my health issues without this being brought up and thrown back in my face. To summarize, my fiancé's family has treated me poorly. He blames me for everything, and now I am at a loss as to what to do or think and need guidance before I lose my mind. Story 3. Moved back home to help my younger brother, but my dad and new stepmom want me to step back. After I defended myself, things became tense. Am I disrespecting their authority for caring about my brother's well-being? This conflict reached its peak a few months ago, and I believed it had been resolved. However, occasionally, I still receive snide remarks. For context, I, 22 years old, moved back in with my father, Matt, my brother Ryan, 14 years old, and my stepmother, Kate. All names are pseudonyms. My father is what my brother has started to call a serial romantic. Ever since my mother passed away when I was 11, my father has not remained single for more than a few months. He has had girlfriends, fiancés, and wives, but none of those relationships lasted longer than 2 years. As a result, my brother has never had a stable maternal figure. Even before my mother died, she was not truly present. She was home but never really there. I later learned from a family member that she had suffered from severe depression for a long time, and her neglect of self-care was the cause of her declining health and eventual death. As for my father, oh boy, he has told every woman in his life that his absence was due to his deployment overseas while he was in the Navy. However, he was never deployed as frequently as he suggested, and he was not gone for more than a few months at a time. In the latter half of my adolescence, he took on a different role and ended his deployment rotation, being home all the time. Still, when I reflect on any memories from my childhood involving my father, the only image I can conjure is him sitting in the living room, in his underwear, surrounded by beer bottles and junk food, playing video games. I could elaborate for hours about my parents' neglect, but we would be here all day, and you are not my therapists. Nevertheless, it was my older half-sister who looked after me and prepared dinner more often than not. She was truly my support, and I adore her, despite our strained relationship now. When I was 6 years old, my sister taught me how to change a diaper and bottle feed Ryan. Unless he was in his crib, we were the ones looking after him, not our parents. After my mother passed away, my father moved us across the country to live near his parents, so I was left to care for Ryan while he was learning to walk and talk. Keep in mind that Ryan was about 3 years old and still not walking or talking. But two little girls have no idea how to teach a toddler such skills. Most children develop those abilities by their first year. My father continued his usual habits and was too busy playing video games when he was not working. I only ever got a break when we stayed with my grandparents. Some of my father's girlfriends had issues with me taking care of Ryan so much. Some were simply uncomfortable with him having children at all. This brings us to the conflict. My most recent stepmother, Kate, is a nice woman. I am older now and accustomed to the pattern my father's love life has created for me, and I do my best to make the most of it now. Even if they never remain after getting to know the real him, I like her, but Ryan does not. He is old enough to have his own opinions, and I cannot fault his reasoning. He says he dislikes how she gave the classic stepmother speech, stating, "I would never want to replace your mother." Yet, he claims she is extremely overbearing and does not validate his feelings or desires. She makes remarks about wanting to adopt him as her own, despite, in Ryan's words, the concept making him uncomfortable because he barely knows her. Please note that my father met Kate, allowed her to move in, and married her within 4 months. Ryan has trust issues, and I feel that my father's romantic pursuits have been a burden to him. I worry that this will set a poor example for Ryan in the future. Despite our age difference, Ryan is my best friend, and we confide in each other about everything. This includes venting our frustrations. Just a week after moving in, Kate sat me down and informed me that I was not his mother, that she was now in that role, and I needed to step back and not challenge her authority over him. My father agreed and made comments suggesting that I challenged his authority as well. They were unhappy with how I used my own money to ensure there were foods he likes in the house. He is a picky eater. How I reminded him of things he often forgets, like homework and chores, due to his attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and how I ensured his hygiene products were stocked, checking in on him about school and friends. They claimed all of that was their responsibility, and when Ryan came to me for something or needed assistance, I was to send him to ask Kate or Matt. I dislike confrontation, so I held my tongue and did not mention my father's neglect, or how he only pretends to be a concerned and disappointed father when she is home. Otherwise, he is, as you can guess, in his underwear playing video games. I warned my brother about what they said and told him that he needed to begin approaching them for things. He reluctantly agreed with me to keep the peace and comply. Just a few weeks later, they sat me down again to express their dissatisfaction, even angrier than before. They claimed he was still not communicating with them about anything, and I had to stop behaving like his mother because it was disrespectful. I explained that I had spoken to him and encouraged him to get in the habit of asking them for help, and that he had not been coming to me anymore, which led me to believe he was doing so. They dropped the subject and left. When Ryan came home from school, he told me that he did not feel comfortable asking Kate anything and was too anxious to approach our father for assistance. So he simply did not ask. I resumed doing what I had been doing before, trying to discreetly help him out, attempting to avoid a fight. I will not tell a child that they must go to someone they do not feel comfortable approaching for help. Eventually, it all erupted into an argument, mostly between me and my father regarding years of defiance and a lack of respect. I snapped and told him that if he were actually the man he pretended to be to attract women, I would not have had to raise his son. He was deeply offended, and I knew I had messed up immediately. I dislike dealing with his wounded ego. It feels like traversing a minefield when he is upset. I realized it would cause more problems for Ryan than for me. Fortunately, years of abuse and peacekeeping have equipped me with excellent skills at appeasing people to stay on their good sides, and I managed to navigate the following weeks by diffusing my father's rage. Now I am on good terms with Kate, and my father and I are back to ignoring the rift between us and coexisting. The dust has settled, but the conflict was never genuinely resolved. They still give me disapproving looks and make comments if I slip, and ask Ryan if he has eaten or showered, or anything else. I feel guilty for creating trouble for my brother and for not having handled the situation more delicately to shield Ryan from the crossfire between us adults. I recognize I am a 22-year-old who, due to financial issues, moved back home, making me a burden in a house that is no longer mine to call home. I cannot definitively say if I am wrong for disrespecting them, but Ryan is my purpose, and I would do anything for him. I am unsure if they are simply getting in my head or if I am a terrible person. I welcome any advice, please. Am I the antagonist? Edit. I had previously moved out on my own, and my father supported my decision to do so. However, due to a toxic roommate and her boyfriend living with us rent-free, it became a struggle, and my father invited me back home, convincing me over a week to do so while I save for my own place. Story 4. Unsure about breaking up with my boyfriend of 4 months due to trust issues, I struggle with his closeness to a flirty friend and his lies about his ex. As I question our future compatibility and feel guilty over a potential crush, should I hold on or let go? My boyfriend, 18 years old, male, and I, 20 years old, female, have only been dating for 4 months, but we are both religious and, as a result, are dating with the intention of getting married far in the future, not soon. Lately, I have been questioning our future due to some recurring issues we have been facing, as well as external circumstances. I am a very anxiously attached person, and he has quite a close relationship with a girlfriend who makes me very uncomfortable. I met him through her, and they were very flirtatious. She also had a strange reaction when she found out about me. However, he is new to the city, and she and her family are the only people he truly knows, so it did not feel right to ask him to stop being friends with her. Before we were even official, I told him that it made me uncomfortable, and that the one thing I needed from him was honesty. I explained that it is acceptable if he makes a mistake and upsets me because that is normal and expected, but it is not acceptable to lie about it. I have had to reiterate this many times due to him hiding things or lying to me on multiple occasions. The most significant example is when he lied about his ex. He told me they had broken up a year prior, but it had only been a couple of months, and they were still communicating. He ghosted her when we began spending time together consistently, but before that, they were discussing getting back together. During our first month together, he suddenly requested space from me without explanation, and it was so he could text his ex and explain why he had ghosted her. I later learned that even though he was not talking to me at all, he was discussing it with the girlfriend, and she was asking strange questions, such as, "If you had never met me, would you still be with your ex?" He responded, "I don't know." There have been many incidents since then. He removed a girl from his Instagram. I did not request this to show me that it did not matter, yet he continued to text her anyway. He had the girlfriend's texts hidden in requests on Instagram. When I asked if the girlfriend was attending an event, he said, "I don't know, I don't think so," but I later found texts from her saying, "I will see you tomorrow," at the event. The major conflict arose after that final incident. He promised me that he would never lie again and that I would not even need to ask him to tell me things. A month later, we were supposed to go to another event, and I deliberately chose not to ask him because I told myself I needed to trust him, and he had stated that I would not need to ask. He canceled attending the event because he had to study, which was totally fine but strongly encouraged me to go. I attended the event and saw the girlfriend there, which caused me to break down. I did not even enter the venue. I called him and asked if he knew she would be there, and he casually said, "Yes." We ended up hanging up because he stated that he did not have time for this and needed to study. I recognize that the action itself is minor, but I felt it demonstrated that he could not even take simple steps to be open with me and adhere to his word, and it was almost an exact repetition of the previous situation. I spent 2 days crying until we had a conversation where he told me he simply forgot to inform me. Later, he also added that it is difficult for him to share with me because I become upset. I told him it was unfair that he was so insistent on maintaining this friendship, yet he was not willing to do the small things I needed to feel even slightly more comfortable. He responded that he needed time to consider what he could do. I believe I have begun to resent the fact that he has not cut off the friendship, even though I logically understand why it is so important to him. Additionally, I am uncertain if our futures are compatible. He is not in university yet as he is taking a gap year, while I am entering my 3rd year as he begins his 1st year, and I feel we have very different priorities. He has stated that he does not want to get married until he is 26 to 28 years old, which would make me 28 to 30, and I believe that is far too late for me, of course. This perspective may change in a few years. He also makes comments regarding his uncertainty about what he desires for the future. contributing to an unstable feeling. The particularly troubling aspect is that we attended an event together where a man may have been flirting with me. I did not reciprocate any flirting, and after he texted me on Instagram, I did not respond and removed him, but I cannot stop thinking about him. He was older and very kind, and I am frightened that I lost my opportunity with him since I distanced myself, yet I feel guilty for even contemplating this, as I do love my boyfriend. I just feel so frustrated and uncertain. I'm also worried that, even if I decide to break up, my mental health is so poor that I may struggle to handle it. He is my best friend, and I rely on him so much. I am scared he would simply be fine and run to his girlfriend to tell her how irrational I am. Should I continue trying to see how this unfolds?